I'm in the process of moving abroad, so I need to sell most of my stuff, and that includes quite a few pairs of boxing gloves. In this case, sparring gloves. These are the Vasyl Lomachenko edition of the Rival Guerrero sparring gloves. These were a limited edition. They don't make them anymore. Rival still make Guerreros, but not the Lomachenko branded ones. So these are now a collector's item. So if you would like to purchase these gloves, head on over to the eBay store, which is linked below in the description, and also I'll pin it in the comments at the top. They're still in good condition despite the fact that I have used them. The padding's in great condition, the leather's in good condition. There are a few very small superficial scuffs to these screen printed graphics, but the leather itself is in great nick, the padding's in great nick. You could use them for sparring and training, absolutely no problem at all, or you could keep them as a collector's item because these are very rare now, so the opportunity to own a pair will not come along very often. But this is one such opportunity, so make sure you head over to the eBay store to place your bids, and maybe you could get these signed by Vasyl Lomachenko himself. And of course, over time, they're almost certainly going to increase in value exponentially, particularly if Lomachenko goes on to have an even more impressive career than he's had so far. So click the link in the description or in the pinned comment at the top and check out these gloves on the eBay store. Bang them together again, just make sure yep, see, harder. You can see the padding is good. Padding's still good. All right. The WBO have officially ordered Terence Crawford to face mandatory challenger Shawn Porter. You can see here on the WBO's website, they've sent out the negotiation letter. The two parties have 30 days to negotiate from July 21st. And if they can't come to an agreement, as is normal in these situations, it will go to a purse bid, and the split will be roughly 75% to the champion and 25% to the challenger. Now, this is kind of a watershed moment, I think a lot of people would agree, for Terence Crawford, because for the longest time, he's been frozen out effectively by PBC. He's been calling out the likes of Shawn Porter, Errol Spence, Keith Thurman, even Manny Pacquiao for the longest time now, and he's been unable to secure any of those fights. There had been rumblings in the past about Shawn Porter fighting Terence Crawford, but it never amounted to anything. Finally, the WBO have decided, yes, they're going to mandate this fight. So we will have finally a PBC top rank crossover if PBC allows Shawn Porter to go ahead with this, because he doesn't have to. You can always turn down the opportunity to be a mandatory challenger. I hope that doesn't happen, because Shawn Porter would be a good yardstick to measure how good Terence Crawford is in relation to the PBC fighters. Because, of course, Shawn Porter's fought the likes of Keith Thurman. He's fought the likes of Errol Spence, of course, and others. So let's see how Terence Crawford does against Shawn Porter. Now, bear in mind, Shawn Porter is not quite the man he was a few years ago. I think we all have to acknowledge that. He's still dangerous. He's still very strong, as we all know. But if you look at his last fight, going the distance against Sebastian Formella, who's a tough guy, but, you know, never really looked like getting Formella out of there, did he? And bear in mind, Formella went on to go the distance in his very next fight with Conor Benn. So back in 2019, Shawn Porter fought Errol Spence. That fight was a split decision over 12. And, you know, even then, was Shawn Porter what he used to be? He was down in the 11th. And for me, Spence wasn't at his best in that fight. No excuses. Okay, I'm just telling you what I saw. Spence wasn't at his best in that fight. He wasn't living the life the way he should have been living it. We saw him turn up to press conferences bloated, looking drunk in certain videos, slurring his words. And then, of course, after that, he had that terrible car accident where he was very lucky to escape with his life. Very lucky to be able to still have a boxing career after such a terrible accident. And it seems as though that has woken Errol Spence up. So he's going to sort his life out now and stick to the straight and narrow rather than being up in the clubs and making it rain and all this other kind of stuff. But anyway, back to Shawn Porter. Prior to that Errol Spence fight, there was the Ugas fight. And many people believe Ugas won that fight. That was a split decision. Many people believe Ugas won. So, you know, all things considered, I personally don't think Shawn Porter's quite, not like he's washed up, Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I am not saying Shawn Porter is washed up. I'm just saying I don't think he's quite the force he was, for example, when he fought Keith Thurman. I think back then he had a bit more energy, just a little bit more zip than he has now. And of course, he's been out the ring for a long time, right? August 2020 was the last time he fought. So by the time he steps in the ring with Terence Crawford, I'm not sure when that's going to be. We're talking about what, September? It's going to be at least September, right? So it's going to be over a year. Whereas with Terence Crawford, he fought in December. So, it isn't that much different than Shawn Porter, but a few months, and he fought Kell Brook in his last outing. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Terence Crawford fought once last year, twice 2019, twice 2018, twice 2017, 3 times 2016. What's Shawn Porter on? Twice or once 2020, twice 2019, once 2018. Okay, so the activity, Terence Crawford's actually been a little bit more active than Shawn Porter, but there's not too much in it. Yeah, so how do you guys feel about this fight? Is it too late? Do you think that, as I say, Shawn Porter is maybe not quite what he used to be? And therefore, if Terence Crawford goes in there and does a real good convincing job on Shawn Porter, will it allow opportunity for the detractors to come and say, yeah, but this isn't the same Shawn Porter who fought, the likes of Keith Thurman and what have you? Will they be able to do that? Again, I think the saving grace here for Terence Crawford is the fact that Shawn Porter did fight Errol Spence just, 2 fights ago. Formella was his last fight, and then second to last fight was Errol Spence. But particularly given the fact that Terence Crawford is seen as the main rival for Errol Spence, 147 pounds. So they'll be able to point to that and say, hey, look, it was only 2 fights ago when Errol Spence went the distance and it was a split decision draw against Shawn Porter. So if Crawford goes out there and I don't want to say does a number because very, very difficult to do a number on Shawn Porter, but let's say he beats him more convincingly than Spence, that will definitely help Terence Crawford's cause. Again, I'm sure people are going to, as I have, although they'll probably go overboard with it, point out that, Porter's maybe not quite what he used to be. So anyway, you guys have that discussion in the comments below and let me know how you think this fight will go. Do you think Terence Crawford will be able to do a better job than anybody else has done on Shawn Porter? Or do you think that he's in for a very, very tough night indeed? Interestingly enough, both guys are at the exact same age at 33. You really have to figure that Shawn Porter has been in a lot more tough fights than Terence Crawford. So there's probably more wear and tear on Shawn Porter as well. He's 31-3 with a draw. Terence Crawford 37-0-0, 28 KOs. So yeah, how do you think the fight's going to go? The physicality of Shawn Porter, he's like a linebacker in there. Comes charging out, when he's at his best. Comes charging out. He can move though. He's got good legs. When he wants to pop a jab and move around and switch it up. We saw that in spots in the Keith Thurman fight. He moved around and messed Thurman about a little bit. So what tactics do you think are best for Shawn Porter? All-out aggression, or for him to mix it up and give Terence Crawford room to breathe here and there? We'll see.